Good morning, one and all. Am I audible to all? Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Raghavendran, for your wonderful insights and your advice. I'm sure he's pretty senior and well known in the industry. My name is Sivakumar. You can call me Siva. I'm part of Johnson Controls India Private Limited. I'm the engineering lead, focusing on software, etc., in the smart building space. First of all, I should thank each one of you for your patience. I know 3 days of event and always third day and Saturday, right? It always starts late, but even if it's late, we are committed to provide the latest information. So at the outset, I'd like to thank CII, IGBC, and the entire leadership team for providing us an opportunity to support you and also learn from each other, right? So I think I humbly accept what Mr. Raghavendran said. An expert is going to talk. A small clarification, I am a learner because there's so many things going on in the world, so not an expert, but whatever little bit we know, we'll definitely share today, okay? So I just wanted to start by saying we are in Tamil Nadu, we are in Chennai, Vanakkam. So I wanted to start with a Thirukural written by Thiruvalluvar. I'll translate it in English as well. So நெடுங்கடலும் தண்ணீர்மை குன்றும் தடிந்தெழிலி தான் நல்காத் ஆகிவிடன். Okay, so this is the Thirukural, Kural 17, wrote several hundred years ago by Thiruvalluvar. So what does this mean? I'll translate this in English. If clouds restrain their gifts and grant no rain, from where the clouds actually took water from, even the widest and the largest of the sea could diminish. Okay, so this is the meaning of this Thirukural, which was written several hundred years ago. Most of us were not even born, right? So last 3 days I've been attending as part of the event, and most of the speakers, industry experts were talking about this lack of awareness, etc., right? I'll get into the topic of software tools, etc., in a bit, but there's a lot of talk about net zero, decarbonization, green, etc. I think if we take our forefathers and ancestors, I think the awareness has already been there, right? I mean, it's evident from Thirukural, what Thiruvalluvar wrote several hundred years ago. And why we need such an event organized by IGBC, why we need to have topics on sustainability, green building, certification, different levels, soft tools, services, technology, etc., right? Because the things are changing, right? What our ancestors, our grandparents, our parents, and where we are, right? From baby boomers to Gen X, Gen Y, and we have Gen Z today, and we have Gen Alpha getting ready. The world is changing very fast. In fact, yesterday I was talking about we are living in a VUCA world, VUCA, right? Which is very volatile, right? You invest your money in stock exchange today, you never know what happens today or tomorrow, right? So it's very becoming unpredictable, right? And it's also uncertain. What you predict today, what you plan today, it changes by the hour, right? I mean, for example, if you take this event, we planned well ahead of time, but you never know what happens. So it's very uncertain. And then C, it's pretty chaotic because there are too many parameters which is beyond our control, and we need to ensure how do we navigate this chaotic environment, and also pretty ambiguous, right? So there's no clarity of thought of any data, what we put, etc. It's always a range, and there's always a risk towards the data. So we live in a VUCA world, and it is time now for us as overall ecosystem, right from OEMs, construction partners, architects, service providers like us, and organizations like IGBC, CII, to come together to take some actions now on a war footing basis, so that for the generations to come, Gen Alpha, Gen Beta, whatever, by 2070, I don't know how many of us will be there to see that whether it's net zero or net positive, right? I think that's where this event is very, very important for us to come together and then talk about it. So I just wanted to set the context. You may feel certain, content being repetitive, but it is re-emphasis of why it is very, very important. So with that, I'll start. How much time I have so that I'm aware of... Okay. So this is the one, right? I have to use? Yeah. Right, so I'm just going to set the context at the Asia level and then bring down to India level so that we know where do we stand, at least at a regional level, right? So now what are the things happening, right? So we have enormity of demographic growth in metros, right? And the moment we say metro, I mean, we all from different cities. I'm a Tamil Nadu born confused Bangalorean, right? So I was born in Tamil Nadu and then I went and settled in Bangalore. Whichever city you live in, the moment metro comes in, we all know what shocks we undergo, right? So there's a lot of urbanization happening and so much of growth is happening. Growth is good, but growth at what cost, right? For example, metropolises are some of the most densely populated cities in the world. And then we also have, by 2020, almost 300 plus cities with 89 population density of 10,000 persons per square feet area. So that's the enormity of challenge we are taking place. The second one is large and complex spatial configurations, right? So the scarcity of land, we tend to go more vertical, and then really looking at limited availability of public funds for investment. I know things are changing. I think this government being stable, I think there's a lot of specific focus on green initiative fund announced by the Ministry of Finance, which is happening, and also ever increasing cost of housing construction, right? And then the next one is extremely high urban population densities. You all see urbanization is happening, but now we also have post-COVID, there's a reverse trend happening where tier 2, tier 3 cities growth is also happening, right? So it's kind of pretty ambiguous. Okay, should I go only focus on metros, urbanization happening, or is there a reverse trend happening, right? It's like a pendulum clock which is swinging, right? So we need to have attention to detail. And then looking at capital investments, infrastructure services or whatnot. So another important thing which I'd like to forecast is, look at from 2010 to 2050 end. So the projected population growth in Asia until 2050 from 44.7% to 66.18%, right? Percentage-wise, it may look less, but in pure numbers, it's a real huge one, right? So the density is going to be very higher. And then booming population, we all know China, India, we compete with each other every day, who comes first, second, or whatnot. But these are all very, very important. Why technology and soft tools are important? Because we know how to solve the problem. But is it scalable enough to solve the same problem for today and for tomorrow is the question we are talking about. Now, Asian countries have different level of commitment and timelines for decarbonization. As Sampath rightly pointed out during his speech, many countries have their timelines to set it up. 8 countries by 2050, 3 countries by 2060, and India is roughly about 2070 is what we are aiming at, right? Yes, these are realistic targets, but if you're talking about our immediate next generation, we need to give a greener planet. This is not enough. The pace is not enough, right? So that's the world we are in today. And there are several other countries who have short-term goals they are not committing to long-term aspects. Now, what makes a sustainable future, at least in Southeast Asia, right? Let's come to our neighboring countries. There are 2 to 3 things. Some of the foundations, I think, Mr. Raghavendran talked about, I think Sampath talked about, and last couple of days we talked about efficiency, particularly on the energy side of it. Number 2, electrification with so much of EV coming up. So that's another area of, greening it out. And all these things are enabled through digitalization. I just wanted to clarify here, there are 2 terms here, digitization, which is more of internal business process digitizing. But here we are talking about digitalization, whereby we are taking sensor, using IoT devices, collect some amount of data, and then make meaning out of it so that we can take proactive action in terms of controls and which is actionable by the persona. And then what are all the purposes? We have to put our citizens first, people first, right? We need to build our communities so that they live happily, prosperly, and in a healthy way. And then accessibility to all. It's not to the vital few, the elite crowd, but it has to be across all the areas, urban and rural divide. And cities have to be livable and also more future focused. whatever solutions we put together, it's not only for today, but also for the generations to come, which is the future. Now, driving hard on sustainability goals, because we have to do this on a war footing basis. For example, if you take Singapore, reducing greenhouse gas emissions 36% from 2005 levels to 2030. And even in Malaysia, they have taken up a smart city hub, Sarong or whatnot, and then ensure they're trying to do that. And Indonesia, tourist destination, they already have enough things to be in place to ensure, like our neighboring countries like Bhutan, to understand and be proactive about how they can become much more greener, much more sustainable. And then Philippines. Now, these are all our neighboring countries, and as you all know, last couple of days we are talking a lot about what India has been going through, and that is what we are trying to set the context here. So we have gigantic energy demand, and always in India, because of the high density and population, there's always a gap in supply versus demand, right? So third largest energy consumer worldwide, fourth largest in renewable energy, and then Green Promise aimed to cut 1 billion tons of CO2. I mean, numbers and dates can come and go, but the key message here is, how do we solve these problems at scale on a sustainable basis? Government initiatives to enhance India's energy, 35,000 crore has been allocated as part of the recent budget, so which is a good news for us, and there's a huge opportunity for us, right? And then coming to what are all the obstacles and the challenges for green buildings, right? So limited awareness and adoption. See, I want to qualify this statement. So we all are aware at a personal basis, as a citizen, as a family member, that we need to have better, greener ways of doing, right? So what we are telling here is, amidst the constraints we have, okay, let's say if you want to walk to work, I'm out of Bangalore, I don't even know where the pathway is, right? Even though I want to walk to work so that I can reduce fuel consumptions or not use any vehicle or whatnot, but I'm not aware of sustainable ways or carpooling ways, etc., to do that. That's what we mean by awareness. But from how to make our world sustainable, as I told you, Thiruvalluvar, Thirukural, it's been there for several hundred years. Now, scarcity of capacity, right? So with so much dense population in a very limited square feet happening, the capacity is going to be a challenge, which also I think Sampath and Mr. Raghavendra addressed that. And absence of suitable data and technology among industry players, right? And the system has evolved over a period of time. If 20, 30 years ago, if you say, oh, the OEMs will say, oh, these systems will work only with us, right? And then slowly it became open, as Mr. Raghavendra said. Now the industries have come together in terms of exchanging their data securely and also looking at open protocols, right? So that's why one of our data platform, we are also calling it as OpenBlue, and there are several other players as well. It is time for the industry to come together and really talk about how do we leverage and harness the data and technology for a broader common cause. Now, coming to our topic of the role of buildings, we talked about sustainability, net zero, green cities or whatnot. The role of buildings is going to be very important. Core components of urban ecosystem, wherever we are in a conference or we're at home or we're in office work, we are somewhere inside a building, right? At least majority of our lives. And then most part is spent indoors, and 40% of global greenhouse gas emissions by the buildings, right? Emitted by the buildings. Now, we are here as part of India, we are part of Asia-Pac. We are in the right position, not only follow what West does, but we have ability and right time and right momentum to define our own destiny so that the rest of the world can follow us, right? So that's the stage we are in, and we all should be glad that we are living in this generation to take on this momentum and set the path forward. So starts to emerge as a potential $1 trillion opportunity. IoT spending, Internet of Things, at least in Asia-Pac, is 436 billion. Don't ask me where we got this data. It's available from many analyst report, but that's the size of opportunity we are talking about. Artificial intelligence and machine learning, I'm sure It's another term. No discussions, conference or speech happens without these terms, whether they really make sense or not, but at least we'll have to start using it and conversing it so that we find value at a later stage. $21 billion market, greater than 40% CAGR projection, and then edge computing, right? So now a lot of our own friends, colleagues, and next generation talking about cloud, but cloud also comes with a cost, and cloud and the data centers also consumes energy, right? So how do we make sure all these AI, ML also be greener, much more friendly? That's where we have edge computing come into place. Why do you send data to the cloud? If there is relevance and possible, we can do analytics at the edge as well, right? If there are any questions on edge, water edge technology, maybe we can take it offline as well. So those are the trends emerging, and almost half of the world's smart cities are in China, 500 in total, 8.8 billion connected equipment, which is happening right now. And then 22% of companies are at advanced stages of really making it versus 7% in Europe and North America for these kind of initiatives, right? So Asia-Pac is leading, and India is a very dominant player. And by 2024, we would have at least 1.14 billion 5G subscribers. Already you would have seen some of cities in your mobiles already getting 5G coming in. How do we leverage those technologies and do most of the things at the edge so that we reduce the load on our data centers or whatnot? That doesn't mean data center has no scope at all. Data center is here to stay and to boom, but how do we optimize the energy footprint? So what are the mega trends for the buildings of the future? I think Sir articulated how the industry got evolved, but this session is all about how do we look at the future. So race to net zero with the need to be more sustainable and drive energy efficiency or whatnot, making buildings more healthier, not only about setting the target, but also looking at the performance measurement and then taking timely actions and not reporting out what happened after the fact, but can we deploy technologies and soft tools to predict something so that we can prevent those things to happen. And advanced security, now we are in a world of, we can either claim we are more secure or less secure. We are talking about physical security, we are talking about data security. Every time you open the newspaper or switch on the channel, across the globe, including India, there's a lot of talking about, oh, is my data safe, etc., right? So we are also looking at how we can make our lives more secure. Now, there are key milestones. I think I'm not going too much into this. I think Sampath already articulated. Many countries have different timelines or whatnot, but reducing excessive hot water temperatures depending upon the climatic conditions we live in, average space heating. There's a huge debate yesterday on what is the temperature at hotel we should maintain. Is it 23, 24 or 19, etc.? That's going to be an ongoing debate. I think my point of view is there has to be a habitual change amongst us as citizens along with the regulation. Only then we will be able to attain those kind of targets. And then average space cooling temperatures 24 to 25 degrees. By 2050, 20% reduction in use of energy intensive materials, because it's not about the technology but also the materials we use, and 30% relative increase in average buildings a lifetime, right? It's not just about being efficient, also about extending the life of capital intensive assets. Now, race to net zero views from business leaders. So we jointly conducted with Forrester a survey, and what they're trying to tell is, if we ask what is driving a company to prioritize sustainability, number one is attracting customers who make their purchasing decisions based upon the sustainable corporate values. So it's no more an operational room topic. It's not a nice to have. It is a business imperative. It is a boardroom topic. And at a board, as stipulated by SEBI, all the listed companies must have an independent director and also a director who oversees the environment and sustainability goals as well. So that's the kind of seriousness with which in India we are operating. And then integrate sustainable value proposition into the corporate brand. About 63% of the decision makers were really talking about. And the second question is, which of the following do we expect to hinder a company's ability to achieve its sustainability goals? Very interestingly, 35% of them responded managing multiple parties executing the plan, right? Let's say if one of you is the customer of a building, you have several OEMs providing several devices and solutions. At the end of the day, how are you going to work together and integrate? So that's where the openness and interoperability comes into picture. So that is going to be key factor going forward. And also, if you look at the question, what challenges, if any, do you expect to face with measuring your current carbon emissions? 48% of the leaders say we need to align internally on what to track and how. Right? There are several definitions going on. As a large multi-distributed enterprise, we need to agree on one common definition, and that's where organizations like IGBC and CII with other companies can come together, have a uniform definition and the reporting standard so that we can work towards a common goal. So now, healthier buildings, how do we make our people, the occupants, more healthier? And how do we make the places more healthier and thereby making our planet healthy? So this is where we are really talking about advanced security, safety and compliance, which is key for all our things we do in our planet. And most importantly, this is where I want to talk about the technology piece of it. So buildings have been existing for several hundred years. We have traditional building, then we had connected building, right? So now we are in an era somewhere between connected and smart, where we are trying to look at open protocols, interoperability, less vendor lock-in, so that the vendor doesn't try to dictate terms and increase the prices or whatnot. We are in a world of open ecosystem. And it's not one player, it's a many player, peer-to-peer network of ecosystems. So this is where I feel we are somewhere between connected building and smart building space, at least in Asia PAC and India region. Now, why do we do that? Okay, one is sustainability, that's great. It's mandated by the country, regulations, we will do. But coming to the businesses, we should also solve and meet their business performance and business goals. So that is very, very important. It's not about corporate sustainability, etc. But at the end of the day, if the shareholders and stakeholders want to invest in your companies, then we need to look at the business performance, and these are the enablers to meet those goals as well. So that is very, very key to understand. Oops, did I? Sorry. Yeah. Now, the increasing share of population in urban areas transforming the Asian economy, right? So again, same thing, 44 to 60%, and then growing population. And this is very important to really look at. I think are the slides repeating? I'm sorry. Okay. The planet. Yeah, this is very important. Sorry, I clicked the wrong button. So how did smart buildings evolve? This is very important to understand. Yes, we had system silos. Earlier it was carbon inefficient, not just because it was designed to be inefficient. At that point in time, the world was smoother, there was less chaos, everybody had their own sustainable ways of commuting or whatnot, so everything was under control, so they thought that it will go well. But as rapid urbanization and population density was growing, that's where they realized, there are inefficient buildings as well. And then we moved on to carbon-aware buildings, where we talked about electrification, upgrades, and renewables or whatnot. And then we become carbon neutral, net zero, as IGBC also marching towards dynamic artificial intelligence or whatnot. And then we are not only talking about zero, but we need to get to a stage where we are net positive, so that we achieve that through autonomous buildings, right? So in the previous slide, I talked about we are somewhere in connected and smart building space, but it is yet to become autonomous, so that there is a closed loop control where we predict certain actions and then also take actions automatically, right? So in system silos, HVAC systems, access control, video, there are several players, several decades in the industry, and slowly modernization happens. And then integrated building management system, optimized through several platforms we have. In our case, it's OpenBlue. And then we have to really look at healthy environments, bringing in clean air, indoor air quality, and energy and water cities. Some of the examples what IGBC showed, how do we really contribute back to the grid or back to the source as well. So this is how the evolution of smart building is. And then what I just want to take 1 minute, a couple of minutes to talk about what Johnson Control is and what difference we make in this journey. So buildings is our core business. We don't do anything else but buildings. Sustainability leader, we are won several awards and also leading some of the initiatives globally, and also local expertise, one-stop shop, and also looking at OpenBlue as a platform where, as the architect suggested, we not only collect data, but we try to sense, monitor, control, and optimize, like a plan, do, check, act kind of a cycle, so that we look at a closed loop kind of area. And we use several technologies such as artificial intelligence, machine language models, and also most recently generative AI to improve the customer experience and meet the business objectives. And subject matter expertise, tailored and flexible offerings, and breakthrough innovations. And this is what I want to talk about, the OpenBlue digital solution. How do we pave way for the future, focusing on data and deriving meaning out of the data and using digital technologies to arrive at the outcomes. So energy efficiency, space utilization, improved operations, net zero tracking, not only setting the targets, but also tracking those, and also looking at advanced analytics and making our offerings more secure. And we also, as I told you, this is not one person or one company's job. It is an ecosystem of partnerships. We do work with some of the global partners and local partners as well. And with that, I just thought we would wrap it up and say thank you and open to Q&A. Yeah, over to you, Sampath.
Sir, thank you so much, sir. In fact, you have set the context for the day, and with a very good quote from Thiruvallur, and you have shared so many statistics and commitments from across the world and what's happening, and the trends in digitalization and technology, and more importantly, the smart buildings. In fact, the last few slides have summed up what we are trying to say in this in this conference. And thank you so much. Now the floor is open for questions. Any questions, please? Yes. Can you have the mic?
Nice highlighted thing. Yeah, definitely you told about urbanization of cities all happening. My question is regarding small houses, like people are mostly staying in villages. For that, what is the Johnson Control will help us or guide us? Affordable housing, like that, in terms of that, where we can play a role. We will talk about the rich office building and all those things, but we should talk about the common man. So for that, what Johnson Control can help us and suggest us. And you see a lot of things growing in Tier 2, Tier 3, like cities like Coimbatore, Tirchi, Velur, and all these things. Yes. So these are really coming up. I know these cities are really growing up.
Yes.
So on that kind of benefit, where we can see and how we can take benefit from your expertise.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, it's a wonderful question. Can you hear me? Am I audible? Yeah.
Yeah.
So as I told during my speech, right, so there are two trends we are seeing. One, rapid urbanization is happening where from Tier 3, Tier 2, people are moving towards Tier 1 cities pre-COVID, right? But during COVID and post-COVID, there's another set of a scenario which is happening where people are moving back to their hometowns and villages with work from home, those kind of things are happening. So there is a reverse drain happening towards Tier 2 and Tier 3, which I'm personally happy, right? Which means there is going to development happening at the Tier 2, Tier 3 towns. Those days we used to call towns, right? Which is happening. But we all acknowledge and understand the moment in our offices we talk about work from home or work from office, decisions are never made, right? We talk a lot, we say, oh, let's work from office, then work from home, then 3 days, then 5 days or whatnot. So that ambiguity is still going to be there. But from our perspective, what we're trying to do is we are looking at overall India as a market, not just the elite, the urban ones, high-end, etc. So we are looking at SME, small and medium-sized segments. And one of the things what we are trying to do that's number one priority, right? Maybe their priority of energy conservation is number two, we don't know, right? So if we make our offerings modular, depending upon the society or communities where we live in, we should be able to solve that first problem, what we call it as MVP, minimum viable product. So make them understand, realize the proof of value, and then give other offerings if they are able to do that. So that's a couple of things we are looking at. How do we look at overall India as a market, segment it as, small and medium and large, and then what are the offerings we have to suit that market? Because if we just look at India as a whole, we are not going to solve the problem, right? This is number one. Number two, what we are also doing is we are working with some of the governmental agencies and non-governmental agencies, because already in Indian government, like for example, there is a NIUA, National Institute of Urban Affairs, where their charter is to go to this municipal commissioners and panchayats and educate them what are all the sustainable practices at a panchayat level, right? So I work with my colleagues here, Sri, and our government relations leader to work with the agencies, how we can help them to reach to the masses and then thereby do a bottoms-up transformation. We cannot sit in a boardroom and then say, oh, let's make our city greener. That won't work. It has to be at a microcosmic grassroots level. So we also work with government agencies to help them, right, like a TTT, training the trainer, right? So how can we train those agencies so that they can go to the masses and then educate them and then provide offerings, not only through Johnson Controls, but any other means to solve the problem.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Any other questions? Any questions, not necessarily to that topic, please feel free.
So this OpenBlue, how it will be connected to, like, suppose let us say, ours is I'm from I'm Sivaprasad from Hyderabad Institute of Technology and Management.
Sure.
Ours is a silver rated building.
Okay.
Green building. So how this your OpenBlue software can be useful for evaluate ourselves?
Yes.
To take it, there are two things. One is improvement. Second thing is maintenance of the present existence infrastructure, actually.
Yes.
So it's a big challenge.
Yeah.
So how this OpenBlue platform can be useful for us, like take it further, actually.
Sure. Well, thank you for a wonderful question. This is a live example of how such platforms can be useful. We'll have a detailed conversation offline. We are experts here. So what we will do is, first, for us, a building is a customer, right? So we try to onboard the building with the help of whatever data you're able to share, either your building model or whatnot, and then collect the real-time performance data of your equipments. It could be your chillers, it could be your heat pumps, compressors, or your lighting data, or even if you have indoor counting sensors or whatnot, we collect the data, and then we look at a baseline of, we need some time, few weeks to establish a baseline, right? Is that baseline in line with the overall global benchmark and India benchmark, right? So if it is lower, how can we better it? If it's higher, how do we optimize it? We have separate offering to come and do an audit, establish a baseline, and then recommend certain actions. The second set, what we can do is having access to the real-time data, what your equipments provide from the building. We should be able to apply our artificial intelligence models and then proactively talk about, hey, this equipment in next few weeks is going to fail or it's going to perform suboptimally, right? We can generate alarms and alert your building management and facility managers to take appropriate actions. Now, this is only a work in progress, right? Now, post-action is taken. How do we really ensure that it is improved? So that is where our real-time dashboarding, a single pane of glass, OpenBlue offers, not only from an energy perspective, but also from security and safety perspective. How do we look at the trend over days, over weeks, over months, and also year on year? So these are all the possibilities we have. This is number one. Number two, if we have a fleet of a portfolio of buildings across, we can also come out with like a leaderboard or a gaming aspect saying that, hey, building 1 is performing better, whereas building 2 is performing even better. So you can incentivize your facility managers to say, how do we compete and make the overall building much healthier? So these are all the possibilities with which we can, using OpenBlue, we can do. And we have certain examples within India where we have deployed all this.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir,
Yeah.
a couple of more questions.
Thank you, sir, for your excellent presentation. I am Munirajulu from L&T. It's a generic question. As I understand, the 70% of the emissions are from the cities. And the remaining 30%, is it from the rural ecosystem? If so, since the focus seems to be on the 70%, what is the emphasis and the focus on addressing anything on the remaining 30%?
Good question. I know L&T is also one of our large customers, if you will. So this is not a Johnson Controls or OpenBlue answer, but my personal view is, see, the issue we have today is where do we focus and how do we move the needle, right? So we have a lot of problems in our planet, in our earth, right? So that's where we just wanted to focus on who are the larger contributors to this problem. Like 80-20 rule, this is kind of a 70-30. Even if we address some portion of that 70% of the problem, that by itself is a good starting point. And then we can figure out how to cover the 70%. But I totally agree with you. If we don't have a line of sight of this 30%, within the next 2 years, that 30 itself will contribute to 50. So we need to have a multi-pronged approach in collaboration with the government agencies where they stipulate policies and regulations, etc. That's number one. Number two, with industries like us, like large enterprises like yourself and service providers like us. And three, the most importantly, the academia, right? So what we are trying to do is the generations are also changing. And hence the habits. I'm not telling the Gen Zers or Gen Alphas are irresponsible. They are also responsible, but the habits are changing. So we need to look at this trifecta and triaging effect, work these in tandem, and then also continuously educate the new demography which is coming to the picture so that there is a habitual transformation which is happening. But I agree, for just focusing on 70 alone we cannot, and that's the first priority. But we should also have a line of sight of remaining 30%. If we don't have a line of sight, that 30 itself will soon become 50%. Good question. Yes, we just focusing on, because we wanted to pick and choose what to solve first, but that's not the only problem. We have several other problems.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have one more.
Hi. Do we have time for one more question?
Yeah, we'll take one.
Hi, Raghav. My name is Nishant. I'm from BSI, British Standards. So, just curious to know whether there is any initiative in Johnson Controls to address the embodied carbon in your materials, in your supply chain and manufacturing operations. Is this something you're looking at?
Yeah. I mean, that's not even a question for us. So that is an imperative. So because...
Sorry, the question comes because all the discussions have been revolving around the operational, carbon, how to reduce, energy efficiency mostly over the past years. So nobody seems to have addressed this embodied carbon.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm asking this.
But thanks for calling it out. So one is we providing services to enable others to become carbon. But even before that, so we are a $26 billion company, founded in Cork, Ireland, headquartered in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So it's not even a question for us. All our practices are sustainable manufacturing practices. In fact, at our executive committee level, there is a role called Chief Sustainability Officer. Her name is Katie McKinty. So she reports into chairman, and she also reports to the board independently of our sustainability manufacturing practices, of where and how we source our materials, where we use in our components in our products. And we also do research both globally and in India, because we are in the business of HVAC and refrigerants, right? What are all the forward-looking, low carbon emission refrigerants as well? Not only the materials we use, but also what we are deploying it in our customer site. Absolutely. I mean, it's openly available. We have a sustainability practices. We have a sustainability officer. We have a ESG goal. And personally, our chairman, George Oliver, he drives sustainability market initiative, which is led by King Charles. So along with Anand Mahindra, who is the chairman of the Mahindra Group. So we not only play locally, but also globally. And we actively take part in, I don't know, there are many 20s today, I mean, nowadays, COP20, G20, B20, etc. So we actively play a role in all the 20 councils, and we share our thought leadership, and also we take part in some of the initiatives where we drive globally as well. Yes, without that, we don't exist today in the business. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for
Thank you.
patiently answering
Thanks you all
the
for your patient listening and good questions.
questions. Yes.